Hi everyone, welcome. Today my yellow buckets are 262 days of age, and they're definitely up there as far as seniority. They're definitely among my oldest systems. So those 262 days consisted of an initial, I think it was 207 days of just routine feedings with bedding and everything else. But then over the last 55 days, we've transitioned them to what I refer to as fed foraging. And that just means I've been giving them no bedding with their feedings. So I come back in here every so often. At this point, it's been 10 days since the last check-in. So my hope is that they're ready for a little bit more food today, because I got a couple days worth of coffee that I'd like to dispose of with the help of the worms today. And that really, I think, is going to work out well. A good meal for these worms, since they're now foraging and probably pretty close to the point where we're going to want to think about interesting. I just lost my fingertip on my index finger on my glove. So I do believe at some point very soon, I kind of even had to tell myself, no, we're not going to do it today, because I thought about even maybe doing it today was just transitioning these systems into migration mode, just so we could start getting the worms out of their castings. But you know, the one thing I kept commenting on during the last check-in was how it seemed to me how the moisture in these systems was a little bit high. And then even last time too, we used a little bit of water to rinse off the corn cobs. And it's so weird for this corn cob to be as clean as it is. Usually they're caked with tons and tons of castings material stuck to them. But we rinsed off 2 of these bits of corn cob and took a closer look. And it's so weird how puny they are, like miniaturized. Because I think each of these was kind of like just half of a corn cob, which, you know, normally has a somewhat larger size. So yeah, you know, my thinking was that migration of these worms might be a little bit tricky, because this material is quite damp. So damp that I assume that they would just be happy to remain in it with very little, if any, motivation for them to exit. Unless, of course, we were to migrate them with such a tempting and delicious and comfortable, cozy horizontal migration feeding zone that they would just come running because of that. I think usually the best success I have is when I let the material dry to a point where the worms are definitely on the lookout for different environment to be in that's higher in moisture content. But that almost in a way feels cruel, you know. So I don't know. Let's drop in this portion of coffee for these little guys. I guess I like coffee because it's hardly bringing. I mean, this stuff is damp, you know. It had water run through it to create coffee, but it's not juicy, you know. So I think for the most part, what we're looking at here when we look at coffee, like so, is that that's almost just food with virtually no moisture going in. And you know, as far as food goes, these top covering bags, so let's just throw the corn cobs in there already. Get them right down in there with the rest of the food. But these top covering bags, these were like the types of bags that sugar or flour come in. They're double bags. And these were what we chose to use as top covering pieces of paper, almost like feeding zone indicators in these systems. And last week when we rinsed off the corn cobs, we had all this water fluid. Not a lot, but enough that I was wondering, well, what do I do with this stuff? And I soaked these top covering papers. And it seems to me like the worms really took a shine to that stuff based on it being drenched. So my thought was, now let's just transform that stuff into straight old food for them. Instead of it resting out on the top surface, it's now in there with the coffee, and hopefully the worms will just see that as just more stuff to chew up, and we won't see any of it next time we come in here. But those bags really did a great job. And, you know, I'm just still wondering, do we maybe still deploy a top? You know, maybe that's the thing to do. Let's put in these coverings, just so we're not leaving the top surface exposed to nothing. And I think it is time to let these systems start kicking off a little bit of their moisture content. So I think we're going to decommission the plastic covers down here and just use those coffee filters that are coming with each meal as sort of a semi-flimsy top covering. I still think that because of the depth of the container, I think that the system will tend to hang on to its moisture better than shallower containers. That's just a theory of mine, though. But alright, we're obviously making up parts of this as we go. And now I feel like I'm just taking up a tremendous amount of time rescuing wormies off this plastic. What I can do is I'll just set the plastic aside in each case, but at the end, when I'm done filming, we'll take care of getting the worms off the plastic and reunited with their families before we continue. So I think this is going to send us in the right direction, you know, with the moisture. Worms, love a nice damp environment, as you can imagine. But at some point, I do feel like I gotta be a little bit selfish and think about the practicality of letting things remain that damp when it definitely benefits the migration process for things to be a little bit drier and to have somewhat motivated worms prepared to, get mobilized to seek out a more comfortable space to be in. Now this piece of paper is definitely larger than the one in bucket number 3 was. So yeah, that was bucket 3. We're now in bucket 4. So I'm just reluctant to throw that piece in under the surface. I don't know why. Maybe we'll just do it for consistency's sake. And then we'll follow suit by covering up with the coffee filter that holds the meal that they're getting today. Alrighty. Now I think we're kind of in a cookie cutter mode. We sort of improvised on what to do with that top paper. We improvised a little bit on how to deal with top coverings and demoting the plastic top coverings. But I do believe that we're laying the groundwork for hopefully a smooth evacuation of the material at some point soon when we decide to migrate the worms out of their castings. So let's just give a little aeration to the material over on this edge and we'll be done. Oh, I just bumped into a corn cob. See, this is what they look like, covered in castings, caked all over. And since we're only covering with paper at this point, the paper that we just submerged, look at this, a banana stem. That piece of paper, that paper bag that had been the top covering paper, now that it's down low, I think it's definitely going to see a little bit more action than if it was out on the surface, because out on the surface, anything out here, even what's underneath this piece of paper, is going to get pretty dry. And then that piece of dry paper is just not going to get any attention from the worms. So that just felt like it went pretty quick, making me sort of question if I forgot something there along the way. So let's assume we're doing good here. I think we're in good shape. I gave them their food, no bedding, laying the groundwork for letting the material they're in dry a tad. And it's hard to estimate how much material we're talking about in each of these bins, but I'm guessing that it's something in the neighborhood of about 1.5 gallons, just based on the fact that this bucket has about a 5.2 gallon capacity. So I've been wondering if I'd be able to just empty all 3. Look, so now we've got a really big bag here that's in great shape. But I still think, just for consistency's sake, we're going to submerge it and cover up with no plastic and see what happens. Doesn't matter. It's just interesting. It's almost like we're gradually working our way from a system in bucket 3 where the bag was almost entirely chewed up already, and then over to here in bucket 5 where there's, like almost the entire bag seems to still be here. Why? I do not know. Alright, so I think that's it. Here's a piece of corn cob. The corn cob is what, I think remember. The bins are $2.62. The corn cob is up there too. Here's some more stems of banana. Let's throw the corn cob back down in there, and then I guess we'll see. We'll just go ahead and let this bag now rest beneath the surface of the material, covering it with castings, hopefully in a damp enough space that the worms are able to make use of it. I mean, the material I just excavated there, that handful, was just so covered in springtails, it looks almost like it snowed in here. So I think as far as moisture goes, we're probably good, because when you see springtails, chances are you got maybe a little bit more moisture than you need. So that's it for our check-in with the yellow buckets today. Things are going pretty good. Chances are the next time we visit in with these guys, the material out on the surface is going to be pretty dry, and who knows, maybe we'll even go to the next step of getting these little guys into containers where we can start thinking about migrating them out of their castings. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. I got some stuff I got to take care of getting cleaned up, put away. I'm not going to waste your time with that. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.